Hi, and welcome to On the Inside with Wright Middleton. I'm your host, Janelle. I'm so excited today because today's show is going to be what I think is very encouraging and powerful for fathers. I have a special guest with me who is also a friend of mine. His name is Gregory Jones. He is a pastor. He is also a family and marriage counselor, does a lot of counseling. But he is the father of 3 sons, and he's a husband. So, but he is his story about standing for his son and his story about how you as a father, even though you may not have a relationship with your child, you can still be present and still be a force in their lives. So without me saying any more, I want to welcome you, Gregory. Thank you for coming
Appreciate
to On
that.
the Inside.
Yeah.
I so appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you.
I want to just jump right in because to me your story is very it's phenomenal, and it is not normal. It is not a common story. Just tell us a little bit about it, so I don't tell it all. You tell us about it.
Well, it's a story about a father wanting to be with his child who he couldn't be with, and so my son named Matthew, when he was born, he's a Christmas baby.
Okay.
And my wife, former wife, and I were not getting along, and it was difficult to see him.
Okay.
And so since he was an infant baby all the way up till we finally met when he was 20 years old, 22 years old.
Wow.
For the first time to actually spend time together. But God, he just would never let me leave him.
Okay, so I want to jump in here. From 1 to 20, so that's 22 years, 21 years that passed, right? That you were not allowed to see him, correct?
Correct.
Or have contact with him. How did that make you feel? Just as a father, as a man, how did that make you feel?
Well, helpless sometimes.
Okay.
Made me feel frustrated, and because you're putting forth effort to try to make things happen, try to see him, try to go to the court and do the whole court thing,
Okay.
the legal ways, and then finally deciding, I don't want to do the legal thing. I don't want to spend money where it's not going to work.
Okay.
And that process sometimes can be adversarial in itself. So I decided to just stop that. And then we moved away. We moved 3,000 miles away.
Okay.
And so I still had this desire and this strong passion to want to be with my child.
So you never gave up. You never
No.
said, he's too far, this is too hard, and just.
No, there is no giving up. There's a scripture, Proverbs 17:6, that says, grandchildren are the crown of the grandparent, but parents are the crown of the children. And so that was the driving force for me that God put in me, because he's a father to us, and I know how he is to us, to me. He never leaves me and never forsakes me. He never says, Greg, you did wrong, and now I'm going to give up on you. And so that same example of God to me is the same example that I felt like I had to be to my son, even though I couldn't see him.
Wow.
And so,
what kept you holding on? What kept you, because it wasn't great between you and your ex-wife, your former wife.
Right.
So what, you know what I mean? Like, because there are some men, like, they just give up, and then they love their children, but they just give up. But you never, and this is mind-blowing to me, that you never gave up. What, even though God gave you that passion, what was the outcome that you wanted?
Well, I wanted to have a relationship with him. I
Okay.
wanted to be a parent. And so to be a parent means you have to have a relationship, and you want to be at all the different things that kids go throughout their life. You want to be at, the first time they walk, the first time they say words, and all the different stages of development. And I couldn't be there for any of that. I didn't know and couldn't see, and it was driving me crazy. And it was like, his birthday's on Christmas, so every Christmas, it's like I found myself crying sometimes, that I couldn't be with him on his birthday, which is Christmas Day. So, so I ended up, I was walking with a friend of mine, probably when he was like 3 years old, and I was telling him my story about what happened, how I couldn't see my son, and he had been through a similar situation. He says, well, why don't you write him letters?
Really?
So I said, I can write him letters.
Okay.
And so I got a journal book, and I started writing him letters. And every month I would write him a letter. And also I would buy him cards.
Okay.
And I would send him the cards, even though I never knew if the cards ever got to him.
You did it anyway.
I did it anyway. So I just knew that I'm going to write these cards, and I'm going to write these letters, and one day, and I kept a copy of everything, one day I'll be able to give them to him.
Wow.
And the Lord spoke to me and said that I'm going to restore him to you.
Wow.
And so that was the promise that really kept me in the game.
Okay.
In the midst of fighting all the thoughts saying, give up, it's a losing battle. He may not want to see you, what's going on with him, or he may not like you, all those kind of thoughts that you go through just in the natural self. But God told me that he was going to restore my son to me.
So in your heart, you were remaining connected,
Yes.
even though you weren't physically there. And in your spirit, you were remaining
Absolutely.
connected
Right.
to him. So for 20 plus years,
Right.
you're sending cards and you're writing letters in this journal. That is so amazing.
Wow.
Wow. So God gave you a promise that you would be restored.
He gave me a promise, and that promise is really what kept me in the game.
Okay.
But then, so 22 years later, he spoke to me to go out and find him. He was in California, and throughout these 22 years, God gave me opportunity to. One time I was with him, I was this close to him.
Really?
He gave me a chance to go to his junior high school, and I knew the teacher there, and she got me into the school. I'm this close to him, but I couldn't say anything.
Really? So he didn't know you were there?
He didn't know who I was, nothing.
Oh my
But
gosh.
throughout that whole time, God had placed people in my life that knew him, and I would get information about him. So I was never far away from him.
Okay.
But God did that for me. I thought that was just so awesome that he would allow me to know what's going on with him. Even in high school, you know, the kids these days have everything's electronic. And somehow God opened up a door for me to get access to his record electronically, 3,000 miles away.
Really?
So I knew his high school grades and what he was involved in athletics. And
so you did
without
not
him
give
knowing.
up.
No.
Every opportunity that you could find something out about him,
I asked.
You asked, and you were trying to find out.
I asked, I pursued, I asked, I talked to people about it. I wanted to know how else can I see him without really getting to see him.
Right.
And but that was really it's that you just can't give up.
Right.
No matter in the midst of all the other things that say give up, you can't give up. And then when God spoke to me when I left the marriage that he restore everything double, and he did. I had 2 other sons as a result of that, restored all the finances.
Right.
He did all that for me, but then he was the last
Peace.
He's the last piece.
Tell me about dealing with the feelings of being so close to him but not being able to say anything, and he's not knowing who you are, because that in itself could make you say, this is too hard. How did you deal with that?
You just have to keep it all together while you're there and cry afterwards. Let it all out afterwards. Or you hear things about him and think, wow, I'm supposed to be doing it as a father. I'm supposed to be there in his life doing those kind of things. When I saw that he was running track, I was supposed to be at a track meet, but I couldn't. And
the reason I'm asking you is because I want men to know that the stand may not be easy, but they can still stand.
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean they're not going to feel some kind of way or go through anything emotionally. But your focus and your point was to have a relationship with your son, to be as present as you could until it became fully restored. Now, go ahead, what are you going to say?
Well, if I'm going to be the glory to my child, then I have to be that example.
Okay.
And so I wanted my child to know that I never gave up. And so, because I know some kids growing up in homes where they don't have a parent, they always want to know who their parents are.
Yes.
No matter what the parents do to them. And all my years of doing counseling and working with kids and families, kids always want to know the parents. And I never want my child to know that I was not there, I was not present.
That's good. Now, I want you to tell the miracle
of
you guys actually getting together, because that in itself is a miracle.
Wow. God spoke to me to go out in California and find him. So I went on the internet, and there were several Matthew Evan Davis Joneses there, and He actually never used his last name Jones. His last name was
Okay.
Davis. And so I looked up, and I knew he was at the University of Fresno State University. So I went there, got a plane ticket, got a hotel room, and
Well, you just went.
just went.
You just got on
I
the
just
plane
got on a
and
plane,
just go and went.
didn't have any idea where he might be. Didn't even know if he was still in Fresno.
Really?
Didn't have any idea. Went on the campus, and for 2 days, I was just asking questions about, I knew he was in a fraternity, and I was just trying to find out where that fraternity was meeting, and just in pursuit. It was like on a mission. I was just like
Really?
driven. That plane ticket was not going to be worth it.
You were finding him?
We were going to find him, and then I found out some information that he was going to be at a certain place at a certain time, and I missed him, and someone told me where he lived.
Okay.
And so I went to his house. It was about 7 o'clock at night, and I knocked on the door. And he answered the door, and he said, "What are you doing here?"
So did he recognize
He knew
you?
who I was, because we did have a small encounter at his high school graduation that we
Okay.
went to.
Okay.
And we had about 2 minutes together to take one picture, and that was it.
Oh my gosh.
So we spent again, the whole money, resources to get to California, go to the high school graduation,
Right.
knowing that I didn't even know if I was going to be able to see him.
Wow. But you did it anyway.
We did it anyway. We did it anyway.
That is so important. Go ahead.
And we got a chance to spend a whole week together for the first time in our life. And it was like looking at a twin.
Okay, yeah, because he does look just like you. But take me back. You knock on the door.
Knock on the door.
He opens the door.
He says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm here to see you." And we just started talking. Well, actually, I didn't see him that night.
Okay.
He said, "Well, why don't we spend time tomorrow?" And I said, "Fine." We made a date. We got together the next day, and we shot pool. We walked. We talked. I mean, he even had the same phone I had.
Wow.
I mean, God just did everything that he said he would do.
Wow.
And it's almost like we never missed a beat.
After 20 years.
After 20-something years, the relationship was always there. Because I just believe God, he knits people's hearts together. And so that was my opportunity. In the last couple of days, I gave him all the journals. Well, first of all, he wanted to know what happened.
Okay.
So we were at the restaurant.
So thank goodness you wrote it all down or had, was writing letters to him.
Right. So I could back up everything that I told him that day in the restaurant. So I told him the whole story. He wanted to know. Of course, he had all these questions.
Right,
and,
right.
And so I did it. And one important thing about fathers is never to bash the mom. So I never said anything negative about the mom. I just said, this is what happened. This is what I did. And that whole time, from birth all the way up until the time that I met you. And then the last day, because I wrote, even the time I wrote my last entries in the journals of us being together. And the last day I gave him the journals.
Oh.
And said, I want you to, these are yours that I know I would give to you.
Wow. God is faithful.
Yes.
He is faithful. What was his response?
I don't know. I don't think he could comprehend it. I don't think he even could, other than him meeting me for the first time and us talking and spending that time together. The shooting the pool, the doing things together we do as a father and son that week. I know he appreciated it, and I know God had put our hearts together. And that was knitted. It was almost like a confirmation of everything that I had desired. God confirmed that week.
Okay.
And I believe it confirmed in him, even though at that age he couldn't comprehend the whole thing. And I'm sure he was still battling between, this is my, what do I call him? So he calls me Pops.
Okay.
He doesn't call me Father, because we didn't have a natural kind of relationship.
Right,
So
right.
that was still had to build. And it did over the last 5 years. He came to Delaware.
Yes, yes.
And met my whole entire family for the first time.
And
so
the
that
whole
was-
church
the whole
family.
church
It was
family.
like a
It was
rock
like a-
star walking through the
Because everybody, because everyone knew, or people close to me knew the story.
Yeah.
And so they knew him when he walked in the door and was able to talk to him like they knew him. As opposed to, of course, him meeting everybody was for the first time, but it wasn't for them.
So
that was-
you weren't just staying connected. You had your family staying
Absolutely.
connected as well. Meaning, so when he did come, it was like they knew who he was, and you know, it was like he was a part
Exactly.
of the family because you kept him a part of you,
Right.
and an alive part,
Right.
you know,
And I think that's the important part, that as fathers, we tend to want to isolate ourselves and what we go through as men, and you have to share it. You got to share it with people outside of yourself so they get a chance to bear each other's burdens, as the word says, and to rejoice with you. And so the whole church family rejoiced with me and Matthew seeing us together for the first time, or
Wow.
in Delaware.
wow.
So that was an awesome experience.
So your heart had to be
Oh, my
overwhelmed,
goodness. Yeah.
overwhelmed to fly to Fresno and to accomplish what
Right.
you went to accomplish.
Right.
That is a tremendous feat, and it is also a great act of courage, a great step of faith, and it's something that I think parents in general, but especially fathers, because I don't know if fathers really understand the importance of their being in the lives of their children, you know,
Absolutely.
whether they're there or not. Because for a child, I was raised without my dad, but just for a child to know that you cared for me, you were thinking about me, even though you couldn't see me. And you weren't just thinking, you were writing letters and keeping journals and you know, trying to make contact
Right.
as you could. What would you say was one of the lessons that you learned out of this whole thing?
I think the lessons that I learned, over the years, was really not to give up, and how important it was for him, for me to be in his life. No matter when we met, no matter what contact we had, it was important for him to know that his dad was always there. And so, I had a natural father from up until probably 5 years ago. So I had a relationship with my father, so I knew what that was like, and the importance of that. And so it just instilled in me the importance of being a father and being a present father. Even if you can't be with your child, you could be present with them through, whether it's writing, whether it's calling, even though they don't want to talk to you, even if it's going over there and they don't open the door, which happens several times, the mother, whoever's there, they don't want to see you. But just making that effort, that nothing goes wasted with a child. I think that's the lesson that I learned, that nothing goes wasted. They record everything.
Yes.
With their parents, so they watch everything and they record everything, and they'll remember that you knock on the door if they saw you that one time, or if you did have that one interaction with them, taking them to a park, and then they never forget that. You can talk to adults nowadays, and they remember things happening, even if it was 1, 2, or 3 things that happened with their parents. And, so every interaction counts. Every letter or every word counts to kids.
It does. My father wrote me a letter at 13. And I still have that letter today.
Wow.
So you go back and you try to glean, you try to find something that you can attach to,
Right.
to find the love that wasn't there
Exactly.
physically. So I'm
Exactly.
sure that Matthew read those journals and over and over, and he may not have expressed it, or maybe he has, but I'm sure it has touched him because you pursued him. And everybody wants to be pursued. God pursues us.
Absolutely.
And you pursued him. How has that affected or impacted your relationship with your sons,
Oh, my
the
goodness.
younger ones?
I'm probably overcompensating with it. They probably would tell you that, Dad, you don't have to be on me like that. My wife calls me a mother hen, even though I'm a father, because I spend time with them, and I know, and watching, they're teenagers now, and so watching them go through their life as teenagers and the time, even though sometimes I don't want, you ask me what I learned through this, that I have to press through my own feelings and my own thoughts of, am I good enough?
Okay.
Am I doing this right? How can I be a better father? And pressing through all those internal things just to get to be able to be a father in the present. And so sometimes the battle is always, I mean, it's on the inside that you got to
Right.
get through that first before you can even do an action, write a letter. I mean, sometimes just sitting down writing a letter was a struggle. It's like,
Really?
because I'm dealing with all these things on the inside.
Okay.
Are they really going to read this? What's the use?
Okay. Okay.
What's the use? And so it's that internal struggle that as men we go through, that we have to get through that to even get to the action part. And I learned that that's important, dealing with all that stuff on the inside.
Really?
Yeah.
So how, what would you say to men or fathers now that, who may not even want to look at that part?
I would say get some help to do it.
Okay.
Find some other godly, preferably a godly male or mature male. Maybe they've been through it before. That experience, you can find me at Victory,
Yes.
and you can come talk to me, and I will talk to you about that. But find somebody who you can talk to about it, so they can help you figure out all those feelings of rejection and depression and those kind of things that you have to work through to even get to the action part to want to do the things that I did.
Right. Because the end result is to connect with the child.
Right.
That's the end. It's like that's the prize. You have to stay focused on that. And whatever you have to deal with to get to that,
Right.
you do it.
You do it.
You do it.
The goal is a relationship.
A relationship.
And a relationship sometimes doesn't mean you have to be present. And so even now, he's 3,000 miles
good.
away, and we haven't seen each other since 5 years now. We haven't seen each other. And so I had to learn how to text.
Okay.
Because he doesn't like talking on the phone. So I had to learn, now we just text each other every 2 or 3 months. But that's still, it's not good enough for me, but that's still a relationship.
Right.
That's where it is with him.
Right. And I bet you he knows that you're there.
Absolutely.
He knows that you're there. If you were there for 22 years without the connection or the relationship,
Right.
and now that you have it, he knows that you're there. He knows he can come to you. That's so,
Yeah, that's
it's so amazing.
and it's by faith, because you don't know. Raising kids is by faith, because you're invested in them and you hope they come out.
Yeah, right.
You hope they come out right.
Like praying over an egg. You're like, oh God, please, please.
Let this sink into them, you know. And so I just thank God that even now I still don't have much feedback from him about how everything's impacted him. Once in a while he'll give me a little inkling, but still I know it's there, and that you can't give up, and that our job as parents, as fathers in particular, because we're the leaders of our household, is to plant the seeds. You gotta just plant the seed, no matter what how much effort it takes to plant it.
Yeah. Wow,
You have
that's
to plant
good.
it. You gotta plant it. You gotta do it.
No matter the effort.
No
Because it's
matter
the
the
effort
effort.
that makes
Oh
us
my.
faint. It's the effort that makes us give up.
It's
But no
not
matter-
easy.
It's not.
It's not easy. It's work. W-O-R-K. It's work.
My favorite word. Help. I have this analogy that I equate a family to a chess game, and how the queen, she's all over the board. She's multitasking.
Yeah.
She's doing everything. And the king, he goes one space at a time, and seemingly not as important as the queen,
Right.
and seemingly not as active as the queen. But if the queen gets captured, the game still goes on.
Exactly.
If the king gets captured, the game is
Game
over.
over.
So I use that
That's good.
so that men, fathers, husbands can understand how important they are to the game, how
Amen.
important they are to the family, to the church, to society.
Yeah.
It's imperative that we have their cooperation, that we have their love, that we have their attention, that we
Right.
have their ideas, that we have everything that God has put in them,
That's right.
is so that they can make this work.
That's right.
Because without them, it works dysfunctionally.
Absolutely.
You-
At best.
At best, it's dysfunctional.
Right.
Dysfunctional.
Right.
So your sons now, Wesley and Josiah,
Right.
how do they, because I'm sure you talk with them
Yes,
about Matthew?
they know Matthew's their brother. Every Christmas we sing happy birthday on the phone, even though we couldn't talk to him. So every Christmas day we sing happy birthday to him.
Wow.
Now we can do that on the phone with him on the other side, so that's cool. So they see him as a brother. They've talked to him. They have their own relations. Now Facebook, so they can Facebook each other on their own, so they have that. So,
Wow.
so then we, when he came here, we went to the beach together, so they had that relationship. And they now have a big brother.
That's so amazing.
So, which is good.
Oh, that's so good.
They have a big brother.
I want you to take 1 minute and just look in this camera and just encourage fathers who may be in that situation.
Sure. Let me just say to you that the first thing is don't give up. And the second thing is to pursue. It's almost like, we have in us as men to pursue. And that's what we do. And so the pursuit is, this child belongs to me. God gave him to me. And I'm going to do everything in my power to have a relationship with this child because he or she needs that. That child needs to have a father. Mothers are just as important, but fathers have a different role that's extremely important and critical. Like Janelle said, when the king falls, the game's over, in a lot of sense of that word. So stay in the game, first of all. Stay in the game and use all the different ways that you can connect, whether it's writing letters, whether it's sending a phone call, text, Facebook, all the social media. Do everything you can to make a connection. And believe me, your child will never, ever forget what you do.
Oh, God, thank you so much for being with me today. This is so good, so good. I hope that you have gleaned information and been encouraged because I am.
Amen.
This is a great, great, great topic. If you want more information and you want to connect with Gregory, you can find us at jwrightmiddleton.com. That's www.jwrightmiddleton.com. I'm also on Facebook on the Inside TV, and I will make sure that you get connected with him. Thank you so much again. Merry Christmas. I know that God has great things for you. Oh, and you can also come down to Victory Christian Fellowship at 100 Wilton Boulevard, where we have a Million Light experience going on for the month of December. God bless you and thank you.